high tower. Let's go!
What is going on, my ghosts, ghouls, and non-binary boos, and welcome back to another very exciting episode of Nerdsplosion. Cameron has caught some sort of bug. It's allergies, but he's too stubborn to admit that.
It's definitely not allergies.
It's for sure allergies.
You had me take allergy pills, and they did nothing. So, I don't know what kind of...
Well, first of all, the allergy...
Spooky-dooty concoction is...
The allergy pill that I told you to take, you have to take daily. You can't just take it once and hope that it goes away.
Yeah, well, your mother.
Anyway, I will be discussing our topic this week.
Well, I try not to die.
I'm very excited about it. So, without further ado...
New episodes of this podcast come out every Saturday. I am struggling to talk right now. That's why Caitlin is taking over this episode. But yeah, you know the deal. Socials and whatnot. But with that being said, let's get into whatever Caitlin has planned for this episode.
Are you familiar with the Wabasha Street Caves in St. Paul?
I feel like I've been there once. I may have been to them. Unless I'm thinking of something different, because I know in St. Paul there are like caves, but they like haul them out for like a dance hall thing. So I might be thinking of the wrong thing.
Yeah, so the Wabasha Street Caves. Crazy haunted. I went on a tour when I was in high school for some class project. I can't remember what I did, but okay, so I'm going to start with a story and then I'll get into like the details of the street caves. So an overview of the street caves is... Actually, let me just do the overview and then I'll do my story at the end. How about that? Do you like this chaotic energy? I've entered gremlin hours.
Every time you host an episode, it's just like, let's do this. Hang on.
It's just chaos. Because,
every time it's just like, all right, cool, let's do this. Hang on a second.
In my defense, my ADHD is ADHDing today, so...
I mean, because you got to do most of the talking, because my voice is fucked.
So the Wabasha Street Caves, which are technically mines because they are man-made, are carved out of sandstone and date back to the 1840s. Throughout history, the caves have been used for a number of different activities, including growing mushrooms, storage of food and belongings, music, and dancing. That sounds familiar. I think that it might be the ones I'm thinking of. They also have a deep-seated connection to Al Capone himself.
Shocker. Man-made caves have connections to the mob?
I'm fascinated with any and all things Al Capone. He's one of my favorite gangsters. Anyway, so I'm reading this from wanderthemap.com.
Also, my mind just immediately went to Minnesota Mafia. Just gonna sneak right past you there.
Are you proud of yourself?
You know what? I am.
Okay.
And no one can take that away from me.
So again, this is from wanderthemap.com. St. Paul is riddled with fascinating history filled with gangsters, corrupt police officers, and caves. One of the best spots to get a peek into the history is the Wabasha Street Caves in downtown St. Paul. These caves were originally created when the area was mined for silica sand to be used in glass production. Throughout the years, the caves have been home to a variety of businesses such as a mushroom growing facility, multiple restaurants and bars, a speakeasy, and even a place where Land O'Lakes used to make blue cheese. We recently went on a tour of these caves. We learned a great deal about the city we call home, the mysteries of the caves by the river, and we were transported into daydreams of what it was like to live during the Roaring 20s. In the early 1900s, I'm going to apologize now. I'm going to absolutely butcher these names, but I'm going to do my best. Albert Macanot, an immigrant from France, found the caves and realized they were the perfect place to cultivate mushrooms. He began to grow mushrooms in the caves and sell them to local restaurants, and eventually his business was handed down to his daughter and her husband, Josie and William Lehman. During the Prohibition in the 1920s, St. Paul was a safe haven for gangsters. They formed an agreement with John O'Connor, the chief of police, and if they kept their crimes out of the city limits, they could come and go as they pleased with no hassle. Due to the support from the local police force, it was only natural that a speakeasy were to open up inside of these caves. After Prohibition ended in the 1930s, the Lehmans opened a restaurant and nightclub called Castle Royale. The restaurant was highly regarded for its cuisine, and meals could be purchased for $1. There was also a dance floor with big-name bands playing on stage.
Oh, a time before inflation.
Literally, a nice, decent meal at a fancy restaurant in a cave for $1?
Right? Like, the only thing you can get for $1 now is a straw.
And there's tax on it, so it's technically $1.07.
God, I hate capitalism.
Rumor has it that many of the most notorious gangsters passed through the caves, one of whom happened to be John Dillinger himself. Stories have long been told of the caves during this era, but my favorite one has to be the triple murder involving Chicago gangsters. Even one evening, 4 gangsters were playing poker after everyone had left when suddenly the one remaining waitress heard gunshots in the fireside room where she saw 3 dead bodies on the ground. She called the police and they told her to wait outside. A few hours later, the police took her back to the crime scene, which was now meticulously clean and fresh, tablecloths and even neatly stacked poker chips. The police told her to never call them again for a false report, and the murderer was never found. What happened to the bodies and the murderer? Well, apparently during that time, police would carry an extra uniform with them in order to sneak gangsters out of a crime scene, and the bodies are said to have been buried in the back rooms of the caves. The only remaining evidence of this event were the bullet holes left in the fireplace, which I saw when I was there, and it's fucking spooky.
Yeah, now that you really mention it, I feel like I have been there. Like, I went there with a couple of people, or like, I don't exactly remember who I was with or when I went, but I do have a very vague memory of being there.
In 1941, the nightclub was closed due to World War II, and the caves were once again converted into a place for mushroom cultivation until 1965. When the Lehmans sold the caves and set up their new facility in Lake Elmo, or until 1965 when the Lehmans sold the caves and set up their new facility in Lake Elmo. After the floods, a fire started by the homeless, and a few failed business attempts, the caves fell victim to bankruptcy and landed in the hands of the bank. When the caves were flooded, they ended up getting filled with trash. Only the front couple of rooms were cleared out, and the rest are still blocked with the trash. The bank ended up taking everything inside, and just as they were getting ready to tear down the outside facade, the caves were open. The caves were once again purchased with the goal to restore the caves to their former glory. Club Royale was reopened and is now called the Wabasha Street Caves, the spot we all know and love today. In addition to an interesting history, the Wabasha Street Caves are home to the restaurant and bar. Thursday nights at the caves are, quote, swing night, and it is so much fun. Swing dance lessons are offered at the start of the evening, and music is provided by a rotating schedule of jazz bands. In addition to seasonal tours offered throughout the year, regularly scheduled tours of the caves are offered multiple times throughout the week. You can take the historical cave tour or the Lost Souls tour. The Lost Souls tour was the one that I did, and it was super spooky, which are both walking tours. Or there is an option for the longer gangster tour, which is part bus ride and part walking. We opted for the basic historic walking tour, but now I want to go back and do one of the other tours to hear even more of the exciting stories and the history of the caves and the city of St. Paul.
So yeah, as soon as you mentioned the swing night, that immediately propped up a memory for me, because somebody I dated in high school, their friends were really into swing dancing, and I went with them for one of the nights and quickly found out that swing dancing was not my thing.
Oh yeah?
So, but yeah, that just reminds me that, yeah, I have been there now that I remember. And I do remember seeing the bullet holes and thinking oh shit. And then I, put it out of my mind. Because I was like, oh, that's interesting. Hey, what's that?
Yeah, I think we did the Lost Souls tour because I don't remember. I went with my dad, and I don't remember having to get on a bus. But I remember walking through, and the whole time, so we're learning about like the ghosts of the mobsters that are there. So there's a couple ghosts that people often interact with, and it said allegedly the bodies of those 3 gangsters that were killed are still there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like people seeing like the old timey 1920s mobster walking around. Al Capone is said to make an appearance here and there. John Dillinger, people swear they see him all the time. So I went with my dad. And
we're just casually just hanging out, and then some guy walks by and just says, "Hey, how you doing?" And be like, "Hey, wait a minute.
Wait a goddamn minute." So I went with my dad, and he and I were at the back of this tour line because I was like taking notes, and I was like 15 or 16, and I fucking didn't want to be there. And I cannot remember for the life of me why we ended up going. It was something for school, I'm pretty sure. But we went, and we were doing this tour, and she was telling us about like the ghosts and like the things that people see, and then we saw the bullet holes, and we saw the dance floor and the band and the stage, and we went through. And these caves like by themselves are spooky just in general because you're truly walking through a cave. Like you can tell that it's a man-made structure, but it's like I'm fully underground right now. Like, and that's my biggest fear is being buried alive. So I'm like, if there's a cave in, like we're not getting out, you know?
As soon as I hear a rock tumble, I'm like, nope, I'm out.
There's going to be a Kate-shaped cloud of dust where I was just standing, like in the Looney Tunes cartoon, and I'm going to be gone. So we're doing this tour, and the whole time I'm feeling something like brush behind me. Like, I feel like there's people behind me, but I don't want to be that bitch. So I'm just like, they're just walking too close to me. It's fine. Like, I'm just kind of like taking my notes and doing my thing or whatever. And I'm watching my dad kind of like do the same thing where he'd kind of like brush off the back of his neck, or like he'd kind of speed up a little bit and like walk a little faster. And I'm like, okay, well, these people behind us are just like rude and just like not paying attention. And I didn't really think much about it, but it was like in the back of my mind, right? This tour was like 45 minutes to an hour long, by the way. And the whole time I'm like, and I can hear like whispering behind me. I can hear they're having a conversation. And I know this because I'm getting frustrated because I'm like, I can't hear the tour guide because you won't shut the fuck up. Like, it's 2 guys behind me. And I'm like, shut up. Like in my head, I'm like, but I'm 15 and I'm like, I'm fucking anxious as hell because when you're 15, you're like, nobody look at me or I'll kill myself.
I was just
to quote John Mulaney.
I was just thinking of that quote.
But so I just keep walking and I'm taking my notes, and I'm at some point during the tour I get into it, right? Because she started mentioning like mobsters and murders and speakeasy, and I was like, you're speaking my language, my lady. So I was into it, and so I kind of started to ignore the people behind me, and I think at some point my dad started to too, because my dad started to walk a little bit closer to me, and because he was like, oh, make sure, because I was like, again, I'm like walking with a notebook and pencil, so I'm just like jotting down notes just quickly and in a way that I'll remember that I can make them neater later. And so my dad, every once in a while, he would lean over and he'd be like, oh, that's a good point, you should put that down. And then like, so we were just kind of in our own little...
I did totally see your dad just like during this whole tour, somebody said, and he's just like, hey, write that down.
Hey, that was really cool. You should write that down.
Hey, write that down.
Yeah. So I did. And so we get to the end of the...
now all I can think of... Sorry to interrupt you, but now all that came to my mind, like all I can think about is that one episode of SpongeBob where Squidward's trying to put together a tent and SpongeBob's taking notes, and he's just wrestling with it. SpongeBob's like, write that down!
Yeah.
And Patrick's just like drawing nonsense.
So we were like... Because we do... Okay, so let me start this by saying that the tour guide did a head count before this tour started, and she counted 16 people. Okay? Yeah. And my dad and I were towards the back, like I said. So we're all kind of walking along, and, we're stopping to look at different things, because they have, like, stuff... They have, like, historically accurate pieces. I don't know if they still do. They did when I went. Historically accurate pieces like the piano, and they have like the table set up, and like they kind of had it set up like it was a speakeasy.
Yeah.
So you had like the bar area, and then it was really cool. I would love to go back. But we get to the end of the tour, And at this point, like, I've started to tune out these fucking two yahoos behind me talking, because I'm like, I don't know why you're here. Honestly, you're not like paying attention. But I do remember them at one point, one of them was like, that's not how that happened. Or they would just keep like making comments like that back and forth. And I was like, oh, okay, how would you know? It's not like you were here.
Dun, dun, dun.
We get to the end of the tour, and the tour guide makes a comment about 14 people being in the group.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, we're too short. At which point my father and I whip around to realize we are at the back of the line and nobody was behind us.
It's dudes.
So we were like, okay, well, you know, maybe that. She's like, well, just wait a minute, maybe they'll catch up or whatever. Because once you go into this tour, there's really no way to get back out until you loop back around.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, yes, there's rooms in these caves, but like when you're doing a tour, it's a very guided like situation.
You're pretty much doing one way.
Yeah. And again, the whole time we were on the tour, we could hear them behind us. And so then the tour guide starts talking, and then she starts describing what these two people were wearing. And it becomes very clear that she's doing it's scripted. And she's like, oh yeah, the two in the pinstripe suit jackets and the fedoras, and, you know, like very clearly trying to make it seem.
Bless you.
Very clearly trying to make it seem like this was scripted, like it was, oh, you know, these two ghost monsters, blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as she starts talking about it, I feel my dad next to me go rigid. And my dad is not easily shaken, right? You know my dad. He's a pretty logical guy. He doesn't necessarily believe in like a lot of stuff. He'll tell you he's agnostic. He's not. He's an atheist. Like, you know what I mean? But I see him go rigid, and then I start to panic because I was like, I'm trying to play back in my head. I was like, when did I hear them stop talking? And then I'm playing back the conversation because I was a teenager and I was eavesdropping.
Yeah.
And they were saying things like, that's not how that happened. That's not supposed to be there. Oh, they moved this around. Like, and then when she got to the part, because she did go over like the homicides and the cop or whatever, and how the waitress was like, how like the whole thing happened, and then they were just like giggling like school children behind me, and I heard one of them say something to the effect of, she looked right at me and didn't recognize me on the way out. And I was like thinking about it, and I'm like, no, that's just my brain like playing tricks on me or whatever. But then I was thinking about it, and I was like, no, but I felt them behind me. Because you know how you feel when somebody's behind you and you just intrinsically, like, I'm not alone in this space.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. And I remember getting frustrated because I felt like they were like toe to ankle behind me, like just like right behind me. And because there were a couple times I almost turned around and I was like, can you fucking not, you know, like back up, because they were in my bubble. But I didn't say anything because at this point I'm like, did I just get followed by two fucking 1920s mobsters on this tour? No, right? Like that didn't happen to me. So I didn't say anything. So me and my dad get in the car, and my dad is still like white knuckled, right? He's rigid. And so I slowly turn to my father and I say, so am I crazy or? And before I can even ask the question, he goes, were we followed by two ghosts through that whole tour? Yeah, I'm afraid I think we were. And we started busting out laughing because I was like, this is what I was hearing them say. And my dad was like, he would confirm it. And he's like, yeah, this is what I heard. And then that one made that comment about the waitress not recognizing her. And I was like, or not recognizing him. And I was like, oh shit. So you did hear that too. Like, I'm not just like, it's not just in my head. And he's like, no. And he's like, and then he was like, I was getting frustrated because I felt one of them kept tickling, like, because my dad was wearing, and I'll never forget this, he was wearing his hockey jersey. He had a Wild jersey, but it in the back on the collar, it's like the tag was flipped up, and he's like, I kept feeling him like fuck with my tag.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I was wondering, because he kept like reaching behind him, and I was like, well, I was wondering what you were doing. And he was like, yeah, I kept feeling him like something brush against the back of my neck, like they were trying to like get my tag or something. And I was like, yeah. And then my dad goes, also, what did you trip over? And I was like, what do you mean? I never tripped. And he's like, yeah, you did. He said, out of the corner of my eye, I saw you stumble. And I was like, no, I didn't trip over. Like, there was nothing to trip. Like, I didn't stumble. So I think what he saw was an apparition go in front of me for a second and then come back. Because I saw something out of the corner of my eye move, and I just assumed it was the shadows, because it's kind of dark down there. But it was such a surreal experience. I will never forget it.
You know, if I was a ghost of a 1920s gangster, I feel like I would do a lot more than just follow people on a tour and just be dicks.
They really were. And the thing that got me, like...
Well, I mean, I suppose you're in the afterlife, so really not much more to do.
The thing that got me the most was when he was like, yeah, Sherry looked right at me on the way out. I even winked at her or something to that effect. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. I thought they were just like... But I was like, oh, fuck. They brought in an extra uniform and just like snuck him right out.
And like, oh, cool. I was followed by actual ghosts. And
not only that, murderers. Well, one of them anyway. I don't know who the other one was, but yeah, it was a cool tour. And I think next time, because I do want to go again, and I think I'd want to do like the gangster tour. Because the Lost Souls tour was cool, but I think the gangster tour would be cooler.
Maybe we should do that. But no, what was I going to say? I suppose that's, now that I think about it, that's probably something as a ghost that I would do too. Like if I was a part of some historical thing.
Yeah. And
they decided, years later to do tours, I would just be as a ghost just following people and just slightly be like, yeah, that didn't happen. Like, just, come out in front of people and be like, I call bullshit.
I'm calling shenanigans. But that's my favorite.
It's like, who are you going to believe? This tour guide or a literal ghost of the person who was here?
Surprise, Sade.
Casper don't tell no lies.
But dead man tell no tales. But that's my favorite thing about places that are haunted, is that especially when you start to like, because the caves have been renovated once or twice because they flooded and then there was fires and so they've had to be like restored. But my favorite thing about that is anytime you go to a haunted location and you're like, yeah, and we started ripping things up and then suddenly there was more ghost activity. Like, no shit. Like if I was peacefully in my afterlife, just like replaying the life that I lived or just like on a loop or whatever, and then all of a sudden some Yahoo came in and started ripping shit out of the walls, I'd be like, I beg your unbelievable pardon. I'd probably throw a fit too.
Well, yeah, why do think people get all up in arms whenever they uncover like ancient Egyptian like sarcophaguses?
Yeah, I'm gonna need y'all to put that the fuck back where you found it.
Literally, anytime they're like, "Oh, we found this. We opened the sarcophagus and found this money," and everyone's just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna need you to put that back where you found it."
The curse of the mummy is a real thing.
Return the slab.
First of all,
suffer my curse.
Also, speaking.
What's your offer?
On the subject, can we appreciate the fact that Cleopatra said, "No man will ever find my tomb," and the only human being come close was a woman? And that's on period, girl.
Damn.
No, but like, they were buried for a reason. Let's just fucking leave them buried, okay? I'm not trying to catch no ancient Egyptian plague.
Right.
I don't want to invoke the wrath of Ra. That doesn't sound like a fun time to me.
Like, I mean, I don't want to be haunted by any ghost, let alone an Egyptian ghost, because there's some fucking plagues and shit with that I just don't want to deal with.
Correct.
Like, I don't need locusts all of a sudden swarming everywhere.
As a Norse witch, like, I also don't need Loki's wrath either. So I'm just gonna leave all that alone.
Norse curses seem worse.
Yeah, I don't need to upset Odin.
You piss off the wrong Norse god, suddenly we get Ragnarok.
Again, not on my to-do list. And that would be Hel, I believe. That is responsible for Ragnarok. But yeah, so that's my spooky story.
I mean, I can think of one that is not that long and it's not really that dramatic, but it's the only one, or one of the few times I've dealt with spooks. So there's a place here in Minnesota called the U-Lands. Well, again, another historical place. And basically what it is it's owned by the University of Minnesota, and it's remains of, I believe, like World War II or something. And one time, me, my friend Tim, and his girlfriend at the time, we decided to just explore it because we were dumb teenagers and we didn't know any better. Technically, you're not supposed to be there because it's, obviously, like, I think it's technically government property. I mean, it's owned by University of Minnesota, but it's technically owned by Minnesota government. So technically, we're not supposed to be there unless we're given permission. So we pull in there and we decide to explore the silo. I kind of stay back because I was just like, I don't know about this. So my friend Tim and his girlfriend explore a little bit, and then they come back because they thought they saw a car, so we decided to skedaddle out of there while we could. And
skedaddle.
We were all kind of spooked, so we literally spent like not even 5 minutes there because we were spooked, and then we got away. And then after that, we went to see a movie, and while we were in line getting food, Tim's girlfriend mentioned that her leg kind of hurt, so we looked and she had a scratch, and there was no plants or anything that she said she rubbed against. So literally we just chalked it up to a spirit there just saying, hey, go away.
Demons. And I need everybody to picture the aliens meme guy when I say that.
Aliens.
Demons. Because ghosts typically don't scratch. Usually, if you're going to get a scratch, it's a demon or a poltergeist. Because ghosts, as a general rule, are pretty harmless.
The only other thing I can think of, as far as like, at least what to me at the time I perceived as like spooks or ghosts or whatever, is I used to stay at my grandparents on my mom's side when I was a kid at the farm, and I would sleep kind of in their room or whatever. And I don't think they had like all the windows open, but the windows were not entirely soundproof. And one night when I was trying to sleep, I kept hearing what sounded like a man yelling.
No.
And I'm like, yeah, middle of nowhere in, farmland, Minnesota.
I would full on, unapologetically piss my pants.
But I don't know. Other than that, something that, when I was growing up, I believed I had a ghost in my house.
Oh, your parents' house is for sure haunted.
Oh, probably.
100%.
Because I remember one night I was just chilling in my room, and I used to have a room down in the basement, which was pretty nice because it was the coldest place in the house, which was really nice during summer. So
yeah, because it gets hot as fuck upstairs.
I think I was just like gaming or whatever, and I noticed my door moving, so I kept watching it. It like slowly opened all the way up, and then like 10 seconds later, just whoosh.
So it's funny that you say that, because that happened once, like one of the first times I stayed over with you, and I almost left. I was so scared. I was too scared to leave the room, and that's the only reason I didn't. But you
just see a Snapchat and you're like, well, I don't think it's gonna work out.
Yeah, actually, I'm breaking up with you.
I'm breaking up. You are cursed.
So what had happened was the door like opened slightly, and then it stopped, and I was like, okay. I was pretending to be asleep because I was facing the door, which was horrifying, which is why, as you'll notice, I no longer sleep facing the door. Fuck all that. So the door opened slightly, and then it stopped, and then it opened a little bit more, and I was like, okay. And then it just like whoosh, slammed closed, and I yelped. I'm surprised you slept through it, but I ducked under the covers so fast, and I was like, I have to get out of here. And then I was like, but then what if I open the door and I come face to face with a creature? Like, that's the last thing I want in the dark, because it gets dark as fuck down there too. And at the time, your parents didn't have blinds, so you opened your door and you saw directly out into the backyard.
Yeah.
And I was like, the last fucking thing I need right now is to open this door and be met with a pair of eyeballs. Animal or otherwise, I will never sleep again.
See, at least the thing is with my parents, they stuff so much shit in that basement that even if somebody went through that shed, moved the sandbags, and opened that slide glass door, they would have to climb over everything to get to you.
Well, and they have blinds and stuff up now, but didn't.
Those blinds are broken, time. But even then, there's sandbags on the other side of that. They have that big storage shed on the other side of it.
Yeah, but I was like, negative Ghost Rider. And then, because the whole time I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go home where it's safe. My house is haunted as fuck too, so I don't know what I was thinking.
Do I want this ghost or my ghost?
Let's see, do I want this ghost or do I want Charlie? Because Charlie and me are tight. Put some respect on his name. Don't laugh at Charlie.
No, I'm just laughing because of all the different times you told me about lit stories. Like, I remember one time, I think you might have mentioned it on here.
Stories about Charles?
I think you might have told me one on here before, so, sorry if we're repeated, but...
I'll talk about Charlie every day. I love Charlie.
You said something... I know you mentioned once that you, set something down in your bed, and then it disappeared for, a week, and then you just found it again.
Yeah,
exactly
this motherfucker took my headphones.
Was it headphones?
Yeah, because it was the first nice pair of headphones I ever bought. And I put them on my bed, and I remember this specifically. I put them on my bed because I had just made my bed, and I was like, let me put my headphones right here, and I'm going to turn around and get my phone because I was going to hook them up to my phone and listen to music. I turned around, they were fucking gone. And I was like, be so fucking for real.
Be for real right now.
So I ripped apart my bed. I ripped apart my room. I couldn't find them. Couldn't find them. So I was finally like, okay, whatever. Maybe I'm crazy. I couldn't, you know how it gets when you put something somewhere and then you go back for it and it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a month, actually, not a week. A month went by. And I had cleaned my room and I made my bed. It was one of those days I was not depressed and feeling productive. So I did all the shit. And then I left to go hang out with my friends for a while. And then when I came home, my headphones were on the corner of my bed, exactly in the spot I had left them when I lost them. And I told my parents, and my mom was like, well, are you sure they just weren't there the whole time? And I was like, first of all, it's been a month.
There's always a skeptic.
I was like, first of all, they've been missing for a month. I've been bitching about it for 31 days. And I was like, and second of all, I have changed my sheets twice in that period. If they were on my bed, I would have seen them. Because I was pissed because I thought my dad took them and he was just fucking with me. And he's like, no, I have not been in your room. I didn't take them. And my dad's such a terrible liar that when he lies, his cheeks get all red and he gets this stupid looking grin on his face. And he looked me dead in my face, stone-faced, and was like, I did not take your headphones. So then I decided that when things go missing, I would just say, give it back, Charlie, and then usually in a day or two, it would show back up. Plot twist, Charlie's actually a fairy.
Well, yeah, if you're nice to ghosts, they're not gonna, do shit to you. So as long as you don't do anything to piss off spirits, they have no reason to fuck with you.
Well, and then there was one time I was in my room. I was watching Netflix on my laptop. It was late-ish at night. It wasn't super late. It was probably midnight or 1. And I heard the most blood-chilling scream come out of my mother. And I don't even know what happened. She just screamed and instinct took over and I ran upstairs to her bedroom. I flung the hall light on and I kicked open the door and I was like, what's going on? And my dad and my mom are both sitting up straight in bed. My mom's hyperventilating. And she's like, I opened my eyes and I thought there was a man standing here. And I was like, okay. So I went over and peeked on the other side. Because the other thing, when we were younger, my brother would do this thing where he would sleepwalk. Mm-hmm. And he would get out of his room at night and he would go into my parents' room and he would sleep on the floor in between my mom's side of the bed and her dresser.
Yeah.
And she stepped on him so many times that when she woke up in the morning, she eventually would wake up and then she would peek over the side of the bed to make sure that he wasn't there.
Just keep a stick by the side of the bed and as soon as you wake up, you're just like, hey.
Yeah, because she's like, I stepped on him and then I felt bad, but I'm like, I know he was there. And so she's like, yeah, I woke up and there was a man standing here. And I was like, so now I'm scared because I'm 14 and I'm like, what am I going to do if there's a man in the house? Like, I just ran up here all willy-nilly. And so my brother had woken up at this point, and somehow my sister slept through the whole thing, which is a miracle to me because her bedroom was the closest to my parents' bedroom, and I was all the way downstairs and I heard it. And so my mom's like, it's fine, it was probably just my imagination or whatever. And then my brother, very sleepy, goes, what did he look like? And my mom was like,
it's a very Ryan response.
Yeah, right? Half asleep. And he's like, what do you look like? I'm gonna figure this out. So my mom was like, I don't know, just kind of shadowy, and you know, he had kind of like, it looked like he had some flouncy hair and whatever. My brother, without even fucking missing a beat, goes, did he have, and I can't remember, it's been so long since I've like experienced Charlie that I forget like what he looks like, but he has a very specific, like, I don't know if it's like a collar or like a collared shirt or something, but he has something on what would be his chest area.
Yeah.
Right. And my brother's like, because my brother calls it a bow tie. It doesn't look, okay, so Charlie kind of looks like a monkey.
Okay.
A little bit. I'll have my sister send me a picture. Maybe we can link it in the show notes or something. But Charlie kind of looks like a monkey in pictures, and he's got like this like bow tie looking situation. So my brother goes, did he have a tie? Do you have a bow tie? You know, because he's half asleep. And my mom was like, I don't know. And then she's like thinking about it. She's like, yeah, I guess. And ears, big ears. And my brother goes, it was just Charlie. And turns around and leaves. And me and my mom are like, what the fuck?
I just see your mom being like, the fuck do you mean it was just Charlie?
My mom's like, who the fuck is Charlie? I'm gonna actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna text my sister and be like, yo, send me that picture of Charlie.
Yeah. Did you have any more ghost stories? Otherwise, I was thinking, since we're talking about like haunted stuff and like ghosts and whatnot, we could end this episode off with a couple of ghost stories I found on Reddit.
Okay. We can do that while I'm waiting for my ghost picture.
All right. So this one I found comes from Tangled Apart, and this was posted 17 days ago. I had a childhood friend named Keith. He was my dad's friend first. A handyman, curly blonde hair, light eyes, beach bum tan, probably in his late 30s, early 40s. He would also kid sit, as we called it, me from time to time. I must have been like 10, maybe 11. He let me watch my first R-rated movie, I Came in Peace, with Dolph Lundgren. He was that really cool guy you get to know in your childhood when you just start feeling like you're growing up. Keith let me tag along with him throughout the house as he installed our alarm system. To me, he was like a hero. His tool belt, like any superhero's gadget belt. I explored other worlds with him. I got to go under the house and explore the crawl space. There was this gross section to my left that was nothing but cobwebs. I hate spiders. I also got to climb up a ladder into our attic for the first time. That, and check out the crawl space above my parents' bedroom. Then, one day, I remember my father telling me Keith passed away. He was the first person I knew who wasn't alive anymore. I was at my grandparents' house. My parents didn't want to tell me how he died, but later on in life, I found out he fell asleep at the wheel and went straight under a parked semi in the most gruesome fashion. I don't think my father ever fully recovered from Keith's death. One evening, not long after Keith's death, my mom, my sister, and I were hanging out in the kitchen. It was night. We were standing in a triangle, and the door to the right of us is my parents' bedroom door. It was open. No one was in there. It was just the three of us. All the lights were on. The conversation trickled to a halt. We were all hearing something above us. We first thought the sound was coming from the attic, but no, it was the crawl space, the last place Keith had been working in. What we were hearing were heel-to-toe footsteps. They were pacing back and forth. This must have gone on for a minute or so. Heel, toe, heel, toe. There was no doubt. We all recognized the same thoughts on each other's faces. We knew immediately it was Keith. I remember my mom telling him it was okay, and he's safe. The walking stopped. To this day, my mom, my sister, and I still consider this a single solitary supernatural event the three of us experienced together. I miss Keith.
No.
See, that's kind of like,
freaks me out.
That kind of that really kind of reminds me of your whole Charlie thing. Like, as long as you're not a dick to the supernatural, you know, they're cool with you. They're not going to haunt you. And more often than not, they don't mess with you.
Yeah, Charlie's pretty chill. Except when he likes to take stuff. And then I'm like, really? Because my headphones is not the only thing he took.
Yeah.
He took things any opportunity he had.
Just a little trickster guy.
He's a little gremlin.
All right, the second story I got is from The Normal Paranormal. Okay, so this happened 2 nights ago. I woke suddenly and saw it was 3 a.m. The house was super quiet, and I was by myself since my hubs was at work. I rubbed my eyes, convincing myself it was just another restless night. But, as I settled back in the bed, a strange feeling washed over me, and it wasn't because I binge-watched Ghost Encounters. Lol. I looked around the dimly lit room. Then I heard a soft whisper, barely audible, but distinct enough to send chills down my spine. I sat up, straining to listen. It seemed to be coming from the hallway, and I began sweating profusely. My PJs were soaked. Hello? I called out. No answer. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, but curiosity tugged at me since I was alone. I put my legs over the side of the bed and stood up, but still under the comforter. As I crept down the hallway, the whisper grew clearer, and I noticed a light down the hall toward the living room. My heart raced, and I literally thought I was going to have a heart attack. I had to breathe because my mouth was turning into cottonmouth. I turned the corner. In the darkness of the corner by the lamp stood a dark shadow figure. Sweat began dripping off my arm, down my back, even my hair was wet. I could barely breathe. Frozen in place. The whispers were barely noticeable, but it seemed to say, "Help me." I was so scared I was frozen and drenched in sweat. It suddenly moved towards my nanny's old mirror hanging on the wall. My heart pounded in my chest, and I stumbled back, falling backwards into the hallway onto the floor. My comforter stuck and intertwined between my legs, my arms unable to move and my knees numb. I crawled back to my room so fast I had bruises all over my knees and shins. I don't think I ever moved that fast. I jumped back into my bed under the covers and, unable to get the courage to change out of my wet clothing, I stayed under the covers until daylight and called out of work because of the lost sleep. I don't know what to do. This is the first paranormal encounter at my house, and I had to share this one. We just moved into this house 1 month ago. Any suggestions? I'm literally terrified to the core. I'm also going to see about putting out some cameras. Well, my best advice would be make offerings.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that spirit ain't gonna leave, so you might as well please it while you're there. That's my only advice for that.
I mean, what else are you gonna do, honestly?
Right. Alright, I think that would probably be a good place to end the episode, unless you get any other final thoughts on spooks and whatnot.
No, Matt is ignoring me, and as soon as we end the podcast, she's going to send me a picture, and she's going to be like, "Oh, you mean this picture?" And then I'm going to be mad.
Right. Like, as soon as I hit stop recording, I'll just be like, "Oh, now you tell me." But, yeah. That's our experiences with ghosts. If you have any of your own experiences, let us know on social medias. Link is in the link tree in the description. But with that being said, we're going to call this the end to another spooky episode.
Happy Spooktober!
Remember to drink your water, do positive things out there. I'm dead serious. If you don't do any positive things out there, I'm going to call your dad.
I'll send Charlie after you.
Yep, do positive things. I've been Cameron.
I've been Kate.
And as always, we'll see you in the next one.
Nerds out.